When a city has been washed in blood, the first to fall is often not the enemy, but the person you have always trusted. Timur's most dangerous step in this life was not walking into the Mongol camp, nor was it charging into the battlefield with a crippled leg. It was placing his loyalty in a brother who was supposed to inherit the throne. The pain of losing his wife, the blood of his slaughtered kin, and the fatal betrayal of the one he vowed to serve faithfully finally severed the last shred of illusion in Timur's heart. In such chaotic times, loyalty is nothing but a cheap death warrant. Only one choice remained before him: to overturn this cannibalistic game of chess. Ironically, what he wanted in the beginning was never the crown. He only wanted the Silk Road to be quiet again, for caravans to safely cross the desert, and for children to grow up without the sounds of blades. But chaotic times never reward kindness. They only force a person, step by step, to become a name that everyone fears. A century after Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire had lost its former might. The Black Death raged, kings fought amongst themselves, and monarchs were reduced to puppets. The Central Asian steppes were fractured, and the Silk Road had become a road of blood. The Barlas youth Timur pledged his loyalty to the Mongol rulers, not out of greed for power, but to maintain order and protect his people and the Silk Road.
We must protect the king.
Inside the city of Samarkand, King Kazkan was assassinated. Beside his corpse lay a dagger belonging to the Barlas tribe. Every eye immediately fell upon Timur's people. Timur's uncle, Haji, denied it on the spot, claiming it was not the work of the Barlas, but a frame-up by the Mongols. Timur told him to go to Khorasan to find Kazkan's heir, Hussein, and hand over the true throne to him. But a power vacuum waits for no one. Once the king was dead, nobles began to wait and see. Tribes began to stir, and the Mongol Khan Tughluq could strike at any time. Timur understood that if Samarkand fell into chaos, the entire city would be swallowed by the flames of war. But fate did not give him the time to uncover the truth. A year later, his deputy Kay Khusrau mysteriously disappeared, and everyone believed he was dead.
Kay Khusrau vanished, presumed dead. My uncle Haji led a reckless rebellion against the Mongols, bringing Tughluq Khan's wrath upon the entire city. I chose loyalty to the Mongols, to Tughluq Khan.
Timur is a fool. He has betrayed his people.
I wondered if I could have stopped it all that night, if I had not believed my uncle. Yet, with his dying breath, he swore he didn't kill the king.
It wasn't me.
At this time, the Silk Road had been torn open by wounds from bandits. Caravans carrying black powder from the Central Plains crossed the desert, only to be attacked along the way. Timur and Hussein led men to rescue the travelers. And they saw the absurdity of a world where the old order had collapsed. A token that once guaranteed safety for Silk Road commerce could no longer scare off bandits. Instead, it became a fat prize in the eyes of plunderers. The world once sustained by prestige had failed. Hussein believed that if he could only reclaim the throne that should have been his, he could restore prosperity to the Silk Road. Timur believed it too, because he had sworn an oath to Kazkan. As long as Hussein was alive, he would serve him. But just then, Ilyas arrived. He was the son of Khan Tughluq and the heir to the Khanate. On the surface, he was merely delivering his father's orders for Timur to go to Samarkand immediately. But Aljai saw that something was wrong. Aljai was Timur's wife and also Hussein's sister. She warned her husband that the Jete Mongols never bestowed favors for free. Timur was not unaware of the danger. He simply couldn't trust Ilyas, but he still trusted Khan Tughluq. He assumed that Tughluq would ultimately hand the throne to Hussein, and if he only went to Samarkand, he could stabilize the situation. Before leaving, he and Aljai discussed a name for their child. If it were a boy, he would be called Jahangir, meaning King of the World. In that moment, Timur was still promising that before the child was born, he would restore the family's glory and return everything to how it once was. But some promises are marked by fate from the moment they are spoken. Upon reaching Samarkand, Khan Tughluq did not honor the old agreement. He did not allow Hussein to inherit the throne, but instead demanded that Timur stay and serve as Ilyas's chief strategist. Timur refused. But Tughluq pleaded with him as a father, "Serve my son, and keep him from failing his royal name." These words were like a chain, trapping Timur between loyalty and reality. He wrote a letter to Aljai, saying he could only temporarily wrong Hussein. He believed he might be the only one who could hold back Ilyas's ambition. But Ilyas did not need him to be a strategist. What Ilyas needed was for everyone to see Timur bow his head. At a banquet, Ilyas toasted everyone publicly, praising Timur with his words while filling them with humiliation.
Our thanks, of course, to my father, our Khan, the wise and merciful leader, who has worked tirelessly to restore peace and unity to this land, and for bringing us Amil Timur, nephew to a Barlas traitor, now my chief advisor. May his wise counsel and position shield us from his family ties and future discord. Let us raise our cups to the great Amil Timur.
All the nobles in the hall were watching. Timur could not draw his blade. He could only endure, offering his loyalty to Khan Tughluq and swallowing his humiliation. But Ilyas did not just want to humiliate him. He soon poisoned him, intending to eliminate both Timur and the potential threat of Hussein. Timur collapsed from the poison, but was luckily saved by the merchant Jasur, who led him through the city's secret smuggling tunnels. When he woke up again, he had fallen into the hands of the Banu tribe. In the eyes of outsiders, this tribe was like a band of bandits, and their leader was known as a Zoroastrian witch. At first, Timur thought he had become a prisoner, but the Banu leader told him that if she had wanted to kill him, he would be dead already. She knew everything Ilyas had done to him, and she knew how the people struggled to survive under Mongol rule. What shocked Timur even more was that Kay Khusro was still alive. This deputy who had mysteriously disappeared was now living in the Banu camp. He had not died, but had been taken in by these outcasts. Timur had been poisoned, and his leg had suffered a severe injury. He survived, but he was no longer the general who once rode like the wind. He became Timur the Lame in the mouths of others. But the crippled leg did not break his will. Instead, it helped him see his position for the first time. Kay Khusro kept reminding him that his father had prophesied that he would achieve greatness and become a new king.
You should be king.
But whenever Timur heard the word fate, he resisted it. He did not want to be the hero in a prophecy, because that prophecy had caused his family to be exiled and had burdened him with expectations that were not his own. He only recognized his oath. He had sworn to Kaz Khan that as long as Hussein was alive, he must serve him.
You summoned me. We have captured a man who could lead us to untapped sources of black powder. He's among the caravan outside.
Jasur? I owe him my life.
There's more. Hussein is alive.
Hussein was still alive. He had been secretly gathering troops, evading Ilyas's pursuit. This news forced Timur to make a new choice. Even though everyone advised him to claim his own throne, he insisted. As long as Hussein was still among the living, his oath remained valid. So, Timur dragged his crippled leg to Khorasan. There, he finally saw Aljai, Hussein, and his surviving family. Ilyas had sent men to attack Khorasan before Timur even reached Samarkand. Aljai was gravely wounded, yet she had fought to protect herself and their child. He owed Hussein another debt, because when he thought he was already dead, Hussein had protected his wife and child. Now, everyone's goal was aimed at Samarkand. Khan Tughluq was gravely ill, and Ilyas had gone north to inherit the Khanate, leaving only the Mongol garrison led by Bikijuk in the city. Hussein believed this was the best time to take back the throne. Timur did not rush to attack. He knew they did not have enough troops, so he played a game of chess. He had men light torches across the distant fields, creating the illusion that a massive army was surrounding the city. Bikijuk, guarding the city, was unwilling to die for a fortress and chose to retreat. Afterward, Timur used white flags and flanking maneuvers to rout the fleeing enemy. Samarkand returned to Hussein's hands almost without a drop of blood shed. That day, everyone in the city thought the tyranny had ended. Timur also believed that he had finally fulfilled his oath. But the throne changes a person, and it also exposes them. Once Hussein ascended to the legitimate throne, he immediately began to purge the nobles who had surrendered.
These men have surrendered. They pose no threat.
No threat.
But Hussein asked, "Do you want justice, or do you want to appease?"
Do you want justice? Or not?
The words sounded reasonable, but they sent a chill through Timur for the first time, because he discovered that Hussein's justice was tainted with the stench of revenge. Not long after, Khan Tughluq died, and Ilyas officially succeeded as Khan. He marched south from the north, intending to retake Samarkand and crush Timur and Hussein completely. The Battle of Lakhmachar broke out. Timur set up a gunpowder formation, using the black powder brought by Jasur to block the first two waves of the Mongol assault. His plan was clear. He would hold the enemy in the front, and when the Mongol drummers signaled the third wave, Hussein would flank from the hills and surround the enemy. Everything was like a layout on a chessboard, but the one who truly ruined the game was never the enemy, but the ally who was supposed to make the move. The battlefield was muddy, and Timur's men were trapped at the foot of the hill. Timur desperately urged Hussein to strike, but seeing the situation was unstable, Hussein chose to retreat into Samarkand to hold his position. He did not save Timur. He did not save those who were trapped. He chose the throne. Timur fell on the battlefield. When he woke up and returned to the camp, he found that Aljai was already very ill. Her wounds had long since become infected, and her fever was burning away her life. She told Timur that Hussein had abandoned them, leaving them to die. Timur refused to believe it. He did not want to believe that the oath he had guarded his whole life had ended up protecting a man like that. But Aljai had no time left to argue.
Now is the time to do what needs to be done. Restore order. Give our son the world he deserves.
In that moment, Timur did not just lose his wife. He lost every reason to escape his fate. The Banu leader looked at him and asked a crueler question. Who placed the first piece on the board? Was it Ilyas? Was it Tughluq? Or was it Haji? No. The one who truly made the first move was Hussein. The Banu leader revealed the deepest secret. When Kazkhan was assassinated, it was not the work of the Mongols, nor of Haji. It was Hussein who had killed his own grandfather with his own hands. That Barlas dagger was a fabricated piece of evidence meant to frame them. From the very beginning, Hussein had been using everyone's blood to pave the way for his throne. Timur returned to Samarkand and stood before Hussein. He asked only one thing. Was it you? Hussein finally admitted it.
I did what had to be done.
He said his grandfather was old and weak, and the nobles supported Haji instead of him. He said he had only done what he had to do. He even tried to persuade Timur that all the sacrifices and compromises were so they could join forces to end the chaos. But Timur could no longer hear him. The bond that had once connected them was completely severed. He finally understood that Ilyas was an enemy, and Hussein was an enemy too. One destroyed the world with tyranny. The other wrapped his ambition in legitimacy. They both called themselves leaders, but they would only turn the common people, their friends and their families, into stepping stones to their thrones. Timur finally accepted the fate he had been resisting all along. He was not fighting for a crown. He was fighting so that his child would not have to live in such a game of chess, and so he walked alone into Ilyas's camp. To outsiders, he looked like a loser, having lost his wife, dragging a crippled leg, and delivering a letter of surrender for Hussein. Ilyas thought so too. He mocked Timur for having lost his former glory, like a solitary shadow. He thought this chess game had finally reached the point where he could claim victory. But Timur sat down and calmly asked to continue the game of chess they had started before. Ilyas asked him what he was afraid of. Timur said, "You are not worthy to be called Khan." These words pierced through Ilyas's pride. Ilyas believed that because he carried the blood of his ancestors, he naturally possessed the right to rule the world. But Timur saw clearly that he lacked the vision, the heart, and the true courage to govern and build a nation. He only knew how to plunder. He only knew how to intimidate. He only knew how to use the glory of his ancestors as an excuse for his own cruelty.
Let's play this out.
But Ilyas had not yet realized that he had already fallen into another game of chess. In Persian chess, the pawn is inconspicuous at the start, moves slowly, and is often treated as the cheapest sacrifice. But if a pawn can walk step by step to the end of the board, it can be promoted, replaced by any more powerful piece. Timur was that pawn. He was pushed by Kazkhan's oath, crushed by Tughluk's power, forced into the desert by Ilyas's poison, and robbed of his beloved by Hussein's betrayal. Everyone thought he would fall, but he did not. He survived the desert, the poison, the crippled leg, and his wife's death. He walked to the end of the board, and then he promoted. The Banu leader and Timur's elite forces had already been lying in wait. The city gates opened according to the plan, and Ilyas's game of chess was completely countered. Timur had not come to surrender. He had come to finish the game.
I have learned to play.
After this battle, Ilyas's puppet rule collapsed. The tribes chose a new leader. Timur granted forgiveness to those who pledged loyalty and made those who resisted pay the price. He was no longer anyone's pawn, and he would no longer entrust order to some so-called legitimate heir, because he finally understood that the most terrifying thing in chaotic times is not having no king, but that everyone who wants to be king only wants to prove they deserve the power, while no one is truly willing to pay the price of power. Later, after years of campaigning, Timur defeated the Golden Horde and ended Mongol rule. He rebuilt the Order of the Silk Road, allowing the people of all lands to see the possibility of peace once again. But the starting point for all of this was not some natural-born king gripping his sword. It was a broken man who, after losing everything, finally stopped avoiding the path he was meant to walk. He once believed that loyalty could trade for peace. He later discovered that if loyalty is given to the wrong person, it only becomes the handle of the slaughtherer's blade. He once rejected fate. He later realized that fate was not meant to make him chase a crown, but to force him to end those evildoers who wore them. If it were you, having walked to this step as Timur, would you continue to keep a vow that had long been betrayed? Or would you rewrite this cannibalistic game of chess with your own hands? Perhaps true conquest is never about conquering land. It is about a person finally triumphing over their own weakness, their illusions, and the truths they were unwilling to admit.